I know a lot of Caribbean women who have people-pleasing tendencies because that is what a lot of Caribbean women were told. Like, you do the things you're supposed to do, you know how to cook, you know how to clean, you know how to do this. Doesn't matter how accomplished and established you are, but you have to please people, to find a man, to have a home, to do all the... My mom was a very, very strong-willed person. And so I think I also benefited from not having traditional gender roles in my house. And yes, diabetes and hypertension can happen to anybody if they live in a poor area and eat poorly. But I feel like the susceptibility to it is higher. And I think she and I were making the same mistake in that community we thought was a thing that we could always just have later. And I think she learned way too late that, no, you have to nurture that. Otherwise, you're going to look around and you don't have it. And it's a thing that I'm working through now in therapy.
Welcome to your new favorite podcast episode. Honestly, this wasn't even gonna make it. This wasn't gonna be included. But I did have a few more questions to ask. And he said, you know what, just hit record. Let's just do it and see what happens. And I'm so glad we did. This podcast episode, amidst all the laughter, is so much about mothers and the revolutionary power of motherhood and what being a woman in the Caribbean looks like for so many different people. We also speak about drug use, addictions, mental health, intergenerational trauma, and the memories that our genes and our bodies carry. It's such an interesting episode. You have to tune in, share with a friend, and let me know in the comments what your favorite part is.
Outtakes.
It's the bonus. It's the bonus recording for me.
No, because you had some amazing questions and you pocketed them. Don't do that.
This one though, I feel like I'm just doing like an informal kind of survey because I think
fine.
growing up Caribbean is such an interesting thing and it really affects you in different ways. And I feel like a lot of my people pleasing tendencies came from being in a Caribbean household, but also the idea that you have to keep going. Like there's no break, there's no rest. It's just hamster on a wheel. Like, do you also feel like these are some things that you're carrying with you from your childhood?
I carry a lot from my childhood, but I feel like my experience is diametrically opposed to yours, and I also recognize that there's a gender component to that. So I know a lot of Caribbean women who have people-pleasing tendencies because that is what a lot of Caribbean women were told. Like, you do the things you're supposed to do, you know how to cook, you know how to clean, you know how to do this. Doesn't matter how accomplished and established you are, but you have to please people, to find a man, to have a home, to do to please your parents. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like there's a structure that's developed for Caribbean women. And I know that patriarchy does a lot of this stuff anyway, but specifically for Caribbean women, there's a structure. For me, my parents lost a child not long after they had me, so they became very helicoptery. And they became helicoptery to the wrong child because I've never had the personality that enjoys being told what to do. So my reaction to being helicoptered, to being told what to do, was to do the exact opposite. And so I did not follow instructions. I did not do the things that people wanted me to. I was unbothered precisely because for me, that was how I could escape being told constantly what to do. And even in my life now, one of the issues that I'm working through in therapy is figuring out how not to punish the people in my life who are not trying to tell me what to do to be oppressive, but they're trying to like support me in some form or another, because it's carried over into my adulthood where, oh, authority? Oh no. What are you
That,
talking about?
yeah,
What
yeah,
are you talking about? Authority.
yeah.
That's a bad word. That's a taboo word. And that's how it's shown up for me, where it was just do the opposite. And my parents, I recognize that they had reason to
Mm-hmm.
think that way, because losing a child 19 days after birth, you go to
That's
sleep one day
crazy.
and then you wake up and your child is just dead, like in the crib,
Yeah.
mouth black, and also like I can still remember hearing the screams coming from the house, because my dad and I were walking back from a park together and my mom was just
Oh,
losing it.
yeah.
So I can understand why
Mm-hmm.
that would be real for them, but then that imposed a lot of restriction on me. So my parents would do stuff like say, um, oh, when I was younger, I would go to the river, because rivers are everywhere in the Caribbean,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, well, except Barbados, because, but rivers are everywhere in majority of the Caribbean, right? And so there was this gorgeous river, clear water, crayfish, all sorts of stuff. And I wanted to go, because my mother and grew up in that same neighborhood, and so she would tell me all these stories about her and my aunt at the river, this
Mm.
that. But she didn't want me to go. You know what I mean? So I'm just like,
Yeah,
yo, you telling me all of these amazing stories about your childhood,
you can't
and
do it.
all the other kids in the neighborhood are in the same river, and you telling me that I
Mm-mm.
can't do it. So I would go, like regardless of what they said, I would go, and I would get my ass beat, but I would go anyway, because I'm just like, you're not going to prevent me from having this wonderful life experience that you
Experience.
that you brag about, but you don't want me to experience because you're afraid I'll drown. Teach me how to swim then. You know what I mean? Like, just
Yeah,
I
yeah.
learned how to swim despite them and not because of them. You know what I mean? Like, it just I like when I wanted to learn how to
Yeah.
drive, my parents were like, no, not until you're like 21. So you know what I did? I copied the key to my dad's pickup truck. They went on vacation somewhere, and I decided not to go on the vacation, because I'm like, while you guys are gone, I'm going to teach myself how to drive. And I taught myself how to drive stick just from having watched my dad do it.
Wow.
Um, yeah, I learned how to drive stick just because I felt like this was a thing I needed to do, and I didn't want to be told I couldn't do it. Um, and so that's sort of how it's gone for me. The if anything, the way that it's similar to you is that I'm avoidant. There's attachment styles, and I think I have the avoidant attachment style, where
Mm.
um, I withdraw, where I avoid conflict, and I think if we're drawing on experiences from family, my parents argued a lot.
Mm.
I hate this. I hate yelling. I hate raised voices for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like discord in my house, and so even when I probably should be vocal about things, I tend to just avoid it and deal with it on my own. So I feel like if there's people pleasing, or if there's anything, it's in the avoidance of
The
conflict in my
avoidance.
home.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
But with regards to anything um, involving authority or something of the sort, my thing is just, if you want me to do a thing, tell me not to do it. That's sort of the thing. That's how it went.
I don't know. I think they're different. I mean, of course, there are different ideals for like girls versus boys growing up in
Mm-hmm.
a Caribbean household.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, I think it was my mother-in-law. She said something to me like this was years ago, and she was like, "Oh,
Mm-hmm.
like I would never allow my girl child to do whatever it was." But I'm like, but he's going out to parties at like 14 years old. But like,
Mm-hmm.
what's the difference?
Exactly.
But is the double standards um that really always get me. And it's also the fact that the woman, because you see the woman in the Caribbean household taking on
Mm-hmm.
so much, like there's no
Absolutely everything.
rest, there's no anything. And I
Mm-hmm.
think I've seen so many women burn out and
Mm-hmm.
like kind of lose themselves in the raising of their children, that like they're
Mm-hmm.
only I hope my mother doesn't listen to this. That their only like solace is the church because there's nothing else to like.
How
There's
much you want to
nothing
bet your
else.
mom listens to this exact, like, this is the episode that your mom listens to? How much you want to bet?
There's
And
nothing
she
else. because you've given so much. You reach a point
Mm-hmm.
where you're retired now, so you're not killing yourself up at work anymore. Your
Mm-hmm.
child is not there. You don't know what to do with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're going to church 15 days for the week because you need to fill something. You need to fill it with something else, and you've so
Yeah.
lived in mother and wife and
Yeah.
caretaker.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't know what to do when all these people have left the house.
Yeah. I think, and my mom was a very, very strong-willed person. And so I think I also benefited from not having traditional gender roles in my house.
Okay.
Somebody asked me the other day, how come my views on so many things are just sort of antithetical to what the like patriarchal systemic view is. And I said, because my mom was a thug. My mom was a gangster. Like I just that lady was like powerful in all the ways a woman can be. And I got to watch like not just my dad be my dad, but also my mom be who she was. And nothing ever took that away from her. And so when she retired, her career and her ideals had taken up so much time for her that I think she had the opposite problem where she had a tough time connecting with other people because their experiences had been so different, and she was not really super concerned with the church. She had her own relationship with God. She grew up Adventist, and she married my dad, who was a Catholic, and so her relationship with the Catholic Church was always, and so she didn't really care about church that sort of way. So she just stayed at home. Like she read, she wrote, she did the things that she did, and she did them on her own. And I think having sort of a non-standard non-standard idol to look up to, or an example to follow, I think it also just freed me up to be like, all right, well, it doesn't have to look like this. It can look however you want it to. And I think she and I were making the same mistake in that community we thought was a thing that we could always just have later. And I think she learned way too late that no, you have to nurture that. Otherwise, you're going to look around and you don't have it. And it's a thing that I'm working through now in therapy. But I think it also just fed back into my rebelliousness, where I was just like, well, look at what you're doing. No, ain't nobody telling you what to do. Like my mother was such a gangster that like she would go to the Ministry of Education. My mom was a school principal. She would go to the Ministry of Education when things were not working out and sit in the minister's office and wait for him to open his door to come outside. Like it got to the point where he would tell the permanent secretary, anytime this lady comes to this office, give her whatever she wants so she will leave me alone. Yeah, my experience was in many ways the opposite, purely because I had sort of a flipped household in terms of what traditional power structures were supposed to be and what they actually look like. But also because I just didn't want to do what people said. Like I'd get 90 some on an exam and my teachers would write can do better. I'm just like, all right, so then I'm not, if I can do better than 90, then I don't need to study and do shit. So I just stopped doing it. I was just like, you know what? So I went from like having an average of an A to like an average of a B minus, because I'm just like, well, if I could do less and I'll see can do better, and I can get 90 and I'll see can do better, then why not just do less? Like I can enjoy myself doing other things. Yeah. So that that's what happened there. You see how much richness we could have missed out on.
I know, as you're saying that, I feel like I also went through that like little rebellious thing. But I was always, I think I felt the weight of my sister being the rebellious child. So I felt like, oh, I had to be the good one to give my parents a balance. So there's a lot of that I'm working through in therapy. But
I wasn't concerned about my parents' feelings. I'm sorry. I wasn't concerned about their feelings at all. I was just like, y'all will deal. Y'all will figure it out.
Somebody will figure it out.
Somebody will figure it out. I was not concerned about their feelings at all.
I remember in fourth form, I just stopped trying. I was like, if I don't try, what would happen? Because it's the same thing. Like whether I get 80, 75, 95, it's always has the potential to do better.
So I'm just like, all right, well, cool. Okay.
And then I was like, what if I just didn't try at all?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, well, probably not a good time to try this before the exams,
Before
but
sex.
but at least I tried it.
Yeah.
I would got things in shape by then, but it felt like there were so many people telling me what I had to do or what you
Yeah.
should do or what you could be
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah.
And it felt overwhelming. And I think
It is.
a lot of that no is kind of I think so why some of my friends now are like changing careers or like finally getting to do all the things on the test that I needed to do because they realized everything they were doing wasn't really for them. You did the thing because
No,
you were supposed to do
exactly.
this. You apply for the job because you're supposed to get this job and pay
Yep.
this amount of money and get this salary.
Yep.
But then you realize, but is this really what I wanted to do?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Not really.
I was watching a TikTok about. Wow, I'm one of those people who says I was watching a TikTok now. Imagine. I was, I was watching a TikTok about this guy this Asian man who he went on and became a doctor, some kind of surgeon. And he was like, he was doing this life-saving work and it wasn't fulfilling for him at all. And he was crying in this video. And I'm just like, bruh, to go through all of this, like 7 years of school and then some, become a top surgeon in your field and then be so unfulfilled that you're walking through the forest on a rainy day crying to TikTok about how miserable you are. And it's like, that is nuts. I mean, I'd be miserable, but I'd cry over my money at home. You know what I mean?
I'd rather be crying in a Bentley, sipping on Hennessy.
Exactly. I would be crying over my money at home, and I know that runs antithetical to everything else that I've said. But I feel like the only way under capitalism for us as Black people to thrive is either, well, one of two ways. One is a fork in the road. Either you dissociate from capitalism altogether, you move into the hills, you build a little hut, and you subsist on the land, or you exist under capitalism as like the anti-capitalist that so like it's like China, where your external policy is purely capitalism and then your internal policy is different. And so I feel like if healthcare is a concern, money will fix that. If mental health is a concern and you can't find people who can advocate for you, well, if you pay a doctor enough money, then they have to do what you say. You know what I mean? Like it just, I feel like there's a way to make the thing less painful, and unfortunately, it involves copious amounts of money. So I would cry into my bank account every month about how much I hated being a surgeon, but I really wouldn't cry to TikTok about it.
Yeah. I mean, there are worse things you could be doing.
That's true. You know? That's exactly true. Some people take crack. You know what I mean? Like there's much worse things.
What? Technically yes, but
I don't judge. No, I don't judge drug users because I understand the concept of an addictive personality. But I just there's a break in understanding for me. You know how some people feel about trans people, like they don't understand transness. I don't have that problem, but I feel like there are people who just don't understand identity in that way. For me, my problem is with people. My problem is like drugs. Like I don't understand how you could see someone like who is ravaged by drugs and think, I want that. I can't. I cannot.
I think that's the thing, though. In all the work we've done, like when we were in media school, there was a lot of talk around the dangers of journalism in terms of it is an individual kind of career path. It can be like dog eat dog, and it does lead you to substance abuse. Like they had some really frank talks about it. And then at the time, the person who was teaching me, Faye Ellington, she's been like in media for like a million years. She had played us an interview with Hugh Croskill, who was like this prolific, he was a really good footballer and then turned like this amazing sportscaster. And he literally followed the Reggae Boys, so the Jamaican football team, to a match in Mexico. Someone introduced him to cocaine on that trip. And that's where the slippery slope just continued going. So he was fine for a number of years until cocaine is really expensive. It was also like the 80s, probably not that accessible. Of course, you're going to fall into crack. And that's where everything went left for him, for his family. And she played an interview with him where he was saying like he doesn't want this. Like he's aware that it's not a sustainable way to live. And it hurts him every time. That's why he stopped going back to his parents' house, because he knows they'll take him in, and he knows he's going to fall into the trap the same time, like every time, because even though you're clean and clear, you're still thinking about the high.
Absolutely.
At all times. Like he says, I know this doesn't make sense. I know I shouldn't be homeless and like sleeping on the road. Like I know these things.
Absolutely.
But it's not for lack of trying that I am not doing this.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So he kind of spoke about that. He tragically died a few years ago because he was trying to get into a doctor's facility. Of course, he frequented the area. The security guard didn't know. He shouted for the man to stop. The man didn't stop. He shot and he died, which was just not great. There's another guy, Bobby Frey, who similar thing. Like he was on TV every night, and then literally just like living on the road downtown.
Yeah, and that's a thing where I'm just like I understand chemically how addiction works. In the same way that I understand fundamentally how gender identity and expression work. Like and that's a thing. You are born a particular way, and your self-expression is a particular way. That's fine. I don't have an issue. Chemically though, and I can understand chemically what happens with drug addiction in the same way I understand chemically what happens with depression and with ADHD. Like the science of the thing is not the problem. The problem for me is like the start point. So there are people who fall into drugs because they had I watched this documentary style movie on oxycodone and OxyContin, and I saw how many people fell into drugs like heroin and fentanyl and all these things because of opiate drugs that were prescribed to them for pain. And things happen. And that's one thing that happens. Growing up in the Caribbean, we didn't have access to those kinds of drugs, right? So a lot of the drug users that I knew were people who had smoked a laced blunt, or people who like knowingly did a thing and did not consider the repercussions of the thing. And that's the part where I think like, but you know what that looks like. And it's not that it's not that like you didn't know you had or that you had an addictive personality and you did it anyway. You knew chemically that this dopamine rush in your brain would never allow you to be the same person ever again. It's just like that initial decision to do the thing, like that's the part that doesn't make sense, where it's just like, but you know what that looks like. You've seen this, you know. It's not like the person who does cocaine and eventually ends up doing crack because they're addicted already. It's the jump off point where like you're presented with cocaine, you know what that looks like, and you do it.
I think this is a whole other podcast at this point.
It is, absolutely. I told you, you're going to have to stitch in some stuff for sure. Like hit pause, stitch in.
It's just a whole different thing.
Do like a little break, and then you'll come back. Wow. Good luck with editing this stuff. Good luck editing.
Well, as you were talking about this though, I think for me too, I think drug use in the Caribbean, it felt like it wasn't that big of a thing. I didn't know that much people. Like you only have a handful of people who are like able to afford cocaine. Like the uptown cokeheads, we know all of them. Like it's a thing. It was so hilarious. Well, not really. It's not really funny, but we make fun of everything.
Yes.
One of my cousins bought this amazing townhouse, nice little complex. I have to stay outside and watch her clothes because uptown cokehead is gonna thief her stuff off the line. Crazy. But then I think there's so much to be said now about the escapism that younger people now are using drugs for that I didn't realize before. I think Back in the day, it was like, okay, you have a few people who do weed, you have a few people who do this and that. And then when I was in university, there were so many people who were like doing ecstasy, like regularly, like to take a break from school to enjoy partying. They were going to do ecstasy. And then when I went to Manitoba to study, I cannot forget this day. We had gone to this guy's farm.
Of
Just
course,
to hang
in
out.
Manitoba. You went to a farm to hang out as a black woman.
Just to
You went
hang
to a
out.
farm.
I was lie. There was another black girl there.
A
And
farm.
they had introduced some other, they were doing their own thing. I didn't partake. I was like, okay, this is interesting. But then after I graduated and we were there for a little bit, I met up with someone else who was just like she was like, oh, we're a part of this organization together. Would you like to come and hang out for a committee meeting? I was like, sure. Then after the committee meeting, she was like, oh, I have an extensive wine collection. You want to come to my house to have some wine? Of course. Love a little wine.
Absolutely. Wine is,
make new friends.
God. Wine's great.
Out of nowhere, her boyfriend says, anybody want to try LSD? I said, let me call the cab real quick. Because...
No, so hear me out, right? Hear me out.
How did we get here?
So hear me out. I think I mentioned to you, like, separately, that mushrooms are what helped me deal with the grief from my mom passing, right? LSD to me is just like the synthesoid of, mushrooms, right? So I feel like the psychedelic drugs are one thing. I don't think that they lead to the kind of addiction that some of these other drugs do. Right, so personally, there's a class of drugs where I feel like, that's fine. But I've been at parties where somebody just brings a tray of Coke, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, and
no thanks.
Complete with the razor blades and the straws and everything. I'm just like, okay, so this is where I don't need to be. This is the place where, because I know what that looks like. I know what it looks like. I know what cocaine or crack addiction look like. I've seen the people eating out of trash cans, not because they were homeless and destitute because they came upon hard times. No, it's because they need to find a way to shove a needle in their arm every day. Like, I understand what that looks like. But it blows me. It's sort of like you get into a vehicle and the brakes are shot, but you driving 150 on the highway.
And I understand what you mean about some drugs are like not as addicting. But I think everything starts from a slippery slope, 1, and 2.
Sure.
It's a lot of people who feel like they don't have anything left to lose at first.
I see that.
At first, it's like, oh, it's fine. I don't have anything to lose. True. And then as you're losing the things, you're like, well, I lost it already. So, you know what I mean? Like,
I mean, I've already lost my car. Like,
I lost the car, I lost the house, the family gone. Like, cocaine and crack not gonna really say no to me. So. And it's crazy. I've been watching this YouTube channel. I can't remember the name of it now, but he like goes around and like talks to people who are addicted. And some people in the comments are like, "Oh, I went to high school with a person. Like they were a cheerleader, whatever." And you realize that it probably is just one mistake, It probably is just one thing where there was a crack. I think the two critical things that kind of stand out to me is like if you got introduced to it too early. That is one of the issues. And then also if there was some big life-changing event that you were using this thing to fill.
Absolutely.
And then it just,
Absolutely.
So the two things I've taken away. I don't know.
Yeah. I was going to say, oh man, the thought just totally disappeared.
And you had the pen to write down the thing.
I did, and I never did. I have not written a single note. But ask me the second question then. Ask me the second question. Because I feel like that second one was important.
Yes. As we're coming back to why we're here. What all the things we're talking about. And I think for me, when I learned about this term intergenerational trauma, it had never felt like it could be used for the Black experience because it was something I was introduced to for First Nations peoples and that kind of thing. But in the same way that intergenerational trauma is affecting or
Mm-hmm.
other oppressed brothers and sisters,
Mm-hmm.
I think it has also infiltrated the Black community, but nobody's
Mm-hmm.
talking about it and how these things
Mm-hmm.
can manifest. And I
Mm-hmm.
was wondering, I was a little bit curious about your thoughts on intergenerational trauma now manifesting in certain like physical things like
Mm-hmm.
ADHD,
Mm-hmm.
or being susceptible to other diseases and things
Mm-hmm.
like that. Putting on like a little conspiracy theory set at this point.
I don't think it's a conspiracy theory at all. So I thank God every day that I did my first degrees in the Caribbean, so I
Mm-hmm.
got to experience higher education from a third world lens, um, or third world approaches. Um, and so my one of my first courses in university was with Sir Hilary Beckles at Cave Hill, and we were doing this book called Caribbean History that he had written. Um, and I don't think that language that he used at the time was intergenerational trauma, but when we talked about the history of slaves eating um, like cobbled together leftovers and scraps, and how it had to be preserved in salt. And so even the saltfish that we eat still,
Yeah.
or the salted chicken back or whatever, like the throwaway meals,
Mm-hmm.
and how there's a much higher instance of diabetes and
Yeah.
hypertension in
Yeah.
our communities. And yes, diabetes and hypertension can happen to anybody if they live in a poor area and eat poorly. Um, but I feel like the susceptibility to it is higher. And he spoke about these things. The susceptibility to it is higher because he says that our genes carry memory. And I think
Yeah.
for us, the intergenerational trauma is very similar, if not the same, as the indigenous people of Canada and to our other oppressed brothers and sisters, because in the same way that they are carrying, in many ways, the trauma of the things that would have happened to their parents, their grandparents, and the actual physical effects that it's having on them. I feel like there's also just for us the physical manifestations of all of these things, and so the fact that for many of us in the Caribbean, our dominant conception of a family was not necessarily a unit family.
Yeah.
Like it was blended families. It was people with multiple children,
Mm-hmm.
and if we think about what family structures looked like during slavery, like it is sort of a continuation of a thing that existed. And I don't buy the whole, the American conception of the black family and the union. Like
Yeah.
I don't
Mm-mm.
buy any of that bullshit. I just feel like a lot of, especially witnessing it in the Caribbean, blended and mixed families, and families where people, you left one place, you and the woman didn't work out, you went, you know what I mean, like,
Yeah.
and or you had three outside children, and then your wife know, yeah. So like we we had these sorts of things, and you'd think um that it happens perhaps more frequently, at least in my experience, in our cultures than in others. And so I think
Mm-hmm.
there's that, and then that also feeds into not just health things and familial things, but also psychosocial and psychological things, where you think about
Mm-hmm.
um, learning, and how learning happens, and the legacy of British colonialism, and how it meant that all of the smart kids were together in one place, and so they could scaffold off each other, and all of the children who were considered slow learners were also in the same place, and
Mm-hmm.
there was no opportunity for scaffolding. The food that we eat, the attention that we receive or don't receive, the genetic memory that we carry may well be influencing ADHD and autism and a
Yeah.
lot of other things. And I it may sound conspiratorial, but I honestly believe that these things are real.
Mm-hmm.
I read this thing about this woman who had been scared by a man in the elevator while she was pregnant. I think he was in a clown costume,
My God.
and her child was terrified of clowns. Like
Mm.
he, yeah, like he had never seen clowns before. And when she took him to some parade thing, he freaked out. He was terrified, and it was because this one clown had really terrified her in a thing. And I think that we can carry genetic memory, and that genetic
Yeah.
memory manifests for us in different ways. And so I feel very strongly about ADHD, and the number of us that seem to have it. and being on the spectrum, because I feel like either we're all on the spectrum and it's to varying degrees, or there's something really major happening where entire swaths of people, generations of people, have like a very specific psychological profile. And if the commonality is we grew up in the same part of the world and our experiences as kids were the same and our historical experiences are the same, then that sort of just, it ties in. And perhaps, I don't know if a large enough study will ever be done to prove this, but if Beckles is to be believed, then I can extrapolate from his thinking. I absolutely think intergenerational trauma affects everything about us in terms of our physiological makeup, the things that happen in our lives, and I think top to bottom, that's a reality. And it manifested for me most frequently in seeing familial structures. That was where I noticed it first. And then secondarily, it was the diabetes, hypertension. Cancer wasn't even a thing that we were dying from a lot in the Caribbean. It was disease. It was measles, mumps, these other things. And then it was diabetes and hypertension. And it was from eating all of this, slavery food, as my grandmother used to call it.
It really is slavery food.
No, yeah.
That's such an interesting perspective, and I think we don't think about it enough. And as I was reading through some of the close papers that have been published in the States, one of the researchers said she knows that there's not going to be any more research done in this because research is not going to be done on anything to find out more information about Black people.
Of course.
She said it in a nicer way, but that's essentially what Sis was saying. And it's upsetting every time too, to kind of feel like you're still learning about your history every time, every few days, whatever it is. But I guess this is our invisible or visible cross to bear. But just it's crazy.
I will say though, I feel like, and I say this for the people who either are wondering whether they need to get an assessment or something. Now that I have an ADHD as diagnosis, and I'm gonna use that. I want workplace accommodations.
Absolutely.
I'm applying as somebody with a disability to all my jobs now.
No, but you are.
I am absolutely. I'm asking for. So when I go back to school, I'm gonna ask for accommodations for exams where I get to do the exam either over several days or take home or something. I'm I feel like the disservice that we do is not in the not knowing whether the thing exists, but in the not accepting it or accepting it halfway. So if you accept that something's wrong, and I say wrong here not in a pejorative sense, but just in lack of a better word.
Not optimal.
Not optimal, suboptimal. You acknowledge that there's something that is suboptimal. You have an opportunity to treat it or to fix it or to work on it in whatever language you want to use. But then the systems that are in place for that should technically benefit us, because they don't ever benefit us in the same way, but the systems that should benefit us, that we don't use it because of fear or concern or whatever. No. Give me all of the give me all of these. Give me access to all of these things. If I can get an extra 3 hours to write the GMAT exam,
absolutely, because
I want them 3 hours. If I can work from home 3 days a week because I can't be around people because of sensory overload, give me. You know what I mean? I encourage people to not to run away from the effects of intergenerational trauma. One, if you can see a therapist, please. And two, if there are systems that can help process or manage any of these things that you're experiencing, then make use of them. It's a solemn plea to everyone to do the things that are going to make life easier for you. It's difficult enough already. They didn't even want us here. Don't make it harder for no reason. They didn't even want us.
Do the thing. Do the thing. And just, I think we have a problem with asking for help, one, and two, making it seem like we're weaker or something, bro.
I have
let it go.
I have no qualms about looking weak. And that's the thing. Like asking for help from me, I don't correlate it with looking weak. What to me looks weak is like failing at a thing that I otherwise could have not failed at because I was too proud to ask for help. That makes me feel not just weak but dumb. You know what I mean? Like feeling
Am
weak
I
is
okay?
but weak and stupid? No. Feeling weak, choose a struggle. Like feeling weak is one thing, but feeling weak and dumb, oh no. I cannot abide it. I can't. No.
But again, as always, amazing.
Always a pleasure. Yeah,
Thank you.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure.
Thank you so much for listening to this podcast episode, and may Mrs. Dujon rest in peace.